quotation to start us off, and this is from Psalms. This is from Psalm 118, just one line. This line says, "This is the day which the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." Now, just to expand upon this concept, this sentiment, in the Hebrew text, whenever we see in these translations the word "the Lord" in capitals, what the original text is showing is this essentially what we could think of as the personal name of the God of Israel, the one God that there is. And so when we see the Lord, in the Hebrew tradition, out of respect of the name, sometimes they call it the name, sometimes they call it the Lord, of course, in Hebrew. But when they see the word, they substitute another word, because essentially it's the word that cannot be spoken, the name of God. We cannot, not because you would be damned if you do, but because anytime that we limit something to a particular name, it means it excludes all of the other names. So when we see here, "This is the day which the Lord has made, let's rejoice and be glad in it." The Lord is one substitution that we can make. We can also say the one. This is the day which the one has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day which the divine has made. Whatever the infinite, which God has made, whatever word that sits best with us, we can put it in place of Lord. And essentially, we're doing exactly what the Hebrews are doing by doing this. So I actually invite us, whenever reading these sorts of scriptures where we see the Lord is of course a bit of a dated name, which interestingly enough now is essentially reserved for God in this context. But it's laden with this idea of bowing down and obedience and subservience. And this is the power where Jesus, the historical Jesus, came in and rather than saying the Lord, said, "My Father." So our Father, this is the day which our Father has made. Just such a more digestible, such a more relatable concept than saying the Lord over there, because the Lord it seems to always be over there, high on the mountain, in the tower. This is the day which our Father has made. This which day? It doesn't say Shabbat, it doesn't say Sabbath, it doesn't say Tuesday. It says this day. So every time that we read this day here now is the Lord, is the day that the one God, the creator, the source, divine, infinite intelligence has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Let us rejoice. Of course, we'll be glad while we're rejoicing. But this is the day. This is it. This one right here. A Course in Miracles. Let's get to it. So this is, call me out, Teresa, if we're mistaken. But we're on chapter 10, section 4, the end of sickness. So if we remember last week, we were on the God of sickness. And now we are on the end of sickness. So I think we're making some nice strides. The God of sickness, again, was essentially a tool of thought. Now, I welcome everybody here, everybody that's here in this room, everybody that's joining us and ever watching this, wherever we may be. Just a reminder before we begin on this journey, without a distance, A Course in Miracles is a tool of thought. It's not meant to be presented as the exclusive truth. It's not meant to be read as fact. It's meant to be read as a tool, so that when we're exposed to a certain thought concept, we're not just blindly saying, oh, well, I guess that's true, but we're using it when we see something that maybe we don't agree with. We're called to, first of all, not immediately discount it. And how do we do that? By providing a little willingness. And how do we actually do this? If we see something that doesn't seem right to us in A Course in Miracles, or really anywhere, this is what A Course in Miracles is teaching us, showing us, unteaching us. When we see something that doesn't seem right, what we're called to do is to say, I'm willing to see how it is that this is right. How can I think of this in a way where it makes sense? How can I think of this concept where it's useful to me and useful thus to all around and everybody in this existence? How can I use this as a tool of thought? Because again, if we are to say that a sentence is true and nothing else is, then just like the Lord, using the Lord for the name of God, we're putting in the truth in a box and confining it and limiting it, thus limiting ourselves and everything in our perception. So everything that we come across, as we like to say in here, this is God. What is God? This room, yes. Everybody in this room, all of the scenery in this room, all the permutations of scenery, all the angles, everything in this world and this solar system and this universe and this tiny little atom, this is God. Every thought that I have and everybody else has is God. How can something be here if God hasn't willed it to be? So we start from this point. We say, this is God. Okay, I know that if something is here, whether I'm thinking it or it's happening and I see it, that it's God. And so from this point, then I can say, okay, how can I use this? How is God wanting me to use this? Because if I see something, what? Do we think that it's an accident that I'm seeing it? Out of all the things that I could be seeing, Spirit, God, decides to show me this thing, decides to present me with this opportunity. I'm no separate from God and Spirit, of course. So it's all a divine symphony. We're all a part of the same thing. And so if something comes our way, we can listen to it, whatever it may be. A Course in Miracles is training us to practice in A Course in Miracles so that everything makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then we can use it in a way where it makes sense to us, where something makes sense to us. But ultimately, we can use this in everything, every reading, every aspect of our day, every person with whom we interact, so that when we see something, we know it's not an accident. This is here exactly for me in this exact moment. And so I give the willingness to let it speak to me. Because the alternative, the only other option, is that there's something wrong with that. That's blocked, doors closed, holding it shut, not willing to hear what Spirit God is saying to us, saying with us.
I really love the way that you articulated that, Noah. And sometimes we think, oh, there's this event that's happening that, I can learn from this. And we can think of it that way. But I like what you just said, that it's speaking to us. What is this situation? What were those words that annoyed me? What is whatever is happening? What is that speaking to us? So we listen. And then we use A Course in Miracles as a tool, as you say, not as a fact, not as the only truth, but a tool. It's like, oh, that annoyed me, but I have this little willingness to maybe be willing to say that this is here for me. I'm going to listen to this. I can do something with this. I can improve my attitude and my thinking on this.
And this is, let me get my pen here. This is also, A Course in Miracles is essentially training us to, thank you, Karen, to extend this. What Karen is bringing in we can, because we're using A Course in Miracles as a tool, we can learn what a tool is and essentially what it is that we're manipulating or how we're communicating, these sorts of things. So if I annotate here, I guess over on the side here, I'll use my little chalkboard. So of course, the world says 1 + 1 = 2. Yeah, obvious, yes, okay, it's true, you're right. Now, but what does that actually mean? One what? And how are we using this? Of course, I understand there are times when this sort of logic and this sort of presentation is helpful. But just as well, so if we say if it's 1 duck + 1 duck = 2 ducks. Now, what about if I have one phone? Whoa, it's a big one. And then one stapler equals 2 things. It can be just one set of phone and stapler. So 1 + 1 can equal 1. You know, we can because we define these symbols however we want, and I understand that there's a gnarly looking one, but maybe that's the point, is that these are just symbols and we're communicating these concepts which are not so rigid. If we have 1 duck + 1 duck, it can be one family of ducks. So 1 + 1 = 1, just as well in any actual situation. So only in symbols can we have something which is not true. We can say, no, that's not equal to 2 part of a triangle, whatever that symbol is. 1 + 1 is not equal to that. That's not true. It's false. But only in symbols does the concept of false exist. There's nothing in the kingdom of God, which is everything that is. There's nothing that is wrong. Nothing that is. The only time that the concept of wrong actually has some bearing is when we take a test in high school and we circle an answer that the teacher didn't want us to circle, and that's wrong. But that doesn't mean really too much. How can we have a wrong thought? What does that mean? How can we do something that is wrong? Maybe we do something that didn't have the intended results or desired results. Maybe something comes our way that wasn't foreseen. And if we don't have willingness and we're like this, holding the door shut, then it may seem like it's wrong. But we're applying this surface level logic reality onto our soul experience, which soul says, no comprendo. What do you mean wrong? What does wrong mean? How can something that is be wrong?
Okay, so if there's no right thinking and there's no wrong thinking, then would you take a minute and a half to define split mind for us?
Are you starting the timer?
Yep, go.
Split mind in A Course in Miracles is any time that we see ourselves or something else as separate. Of course, if we see something else that is not ourself, this is split mind because it's all one thing and it's all ourself. This is what we're getting to in A Course in Miracles, that everything that I see, we have these nifty little thought concept tools to say, my brother is the mirror in which I see the reflection of myself. We could just as easily say, this world is the mirror in which I see the image of myself. So we're using this as a tool to get to the understanding, the intuition that this is myself. Myself was never bounded in a separated body because that doesn't exist. That's just a split-minded concept. It's this surface level logic of 1 + 1 = 2 and nothing else. 2 + 2 = 4 and nothing else that we apply on the inner level where we say 1 person + 1 person = 2 people. Well, what do you mean 2 people? How can something be more than 1? If we have more than 1, then we also have less than 1. And this is where split mind comes in, because if we see 2 people, then we have created half a mind. Because we're no longer sharing a mind, we have half a mind, we're split, we're confused, nothing makes sense. And so the best we can do is just convince ourselves that the logic which we applied is true. 1 + 1 = 1 = 2. Yes, this is my truth.
So back to what you were saying, that everything is God. This is God. Everything, look around, every thought, everything is God. Then if we're in the world and there's something going on, and I'm just using annoyance as an example, somebody watches a YouTube clip and they feel annoyed by it, there's an opportunity there to say, well, this is God too. This is God too. And then you have the little willingness to what is what I'm kind of like teasing out here. You have the willingness to what? To say to yourself, I can adjust that thinking that there's no separation here. That is not me. That is not God. There's no need for annoyance. But on the other hand, feeling annoyed is perfectly fine too, because that's a part of God. So when we say that this is God and there's something here for us, right, to listen to, what is actually being said here? What do we do with it? Do we just go take a breath? Okay, this is God, and leave it at that? Or do we do what I called adjust your thinking, as I called it a few minutes ago?
And thank you, Karen. It's what do we do? It's like, what is there not to do with the realization that this is God? Really think about this. With the realization that this is God, there's no question of what is there to do. This is God. This is the ultimate greatest thing that I could ever conceive, even greater than that. And this is it. So it's just like being in joy. We're not kind of when we're in joy, in love, and just enthused, we would be stepping away from it to sit and say, okay, now what do I do now? There's no question. We're just in the zone. We're in the flow, just rolling down the river. And so it's not a stagnant, it's not a final state of stagnation, the understanding that this is God. It's a continuous process. It's a way, it's a path to tread that's always evolving and expanding. So it's if we're getting back to the practicality realm, this is the most practical thing that we can do, is to just have the willingness to accept, acknowledge, be at peace with the fact that this is God.
And I'll give that an amen.
Good. Good. So there's our intro to the chat segment here. Now, of course, we have chat open wherever you may be in this room, in other rooms. Type in chat. We're happy to get to it. If you'd like to come on screen, just raise a hand. We can call on you.
And if you want to make me co-host, I can bring people in if they come in while you're reading.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we begin here. We'll take it a paragraph at a time. This is the end of sickness. Now, of course, we define sickness in a particular way, which is actually the widest understanding of sickness that is, which is split mind, which Karen had brought in before. Split mind, we can also have the word wrong-minded, not in the sense that we're thinking about things in a wrong way, but in the sense that we think things are wrong. And even in this, there is nothing wrong, but we think that there is. So the solution is always, again, just acknowledge whatever we think is wrong, whether it's ourselves or somebody else. Of course, there's no difference. Is just to acknowledge this is perfectly blessed. This is perfect. This right here, however we define this, it's okay, because this is perfect. This is the beginning of the solution, or the solution, really. The willingness to say this. So let's read here. All magic is an attempt at reconciling the irreconcilable. All religion is the recognition that the irreconcilable cannot be reconciled. Sickness and perfection are irreconcilable. If God created you perfect, You are perfect. If you believe you can be sick, you have placed other gods before God. God is not at war with the god of sickness you made, but you are. He is the symbol of deciding against God, and you are afraid of him because he cannot be reconciled with God's will. If you attack him, the god of sickness, you will make him real to you. But if you refuse to worship him in whatever form he may appear to you, and wherever you think you see him, he will disappear into the nothingness out of which he was made. So here, of course, we're personifying sickness as the god of sickness. And we're even go so far as to say, if you attack the god of sickness, anybody have any insight for what this actually means? If you attack the god of sickness, you will make him real to you. Who has a thought? All answers are right. I think Judith, I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, it's like basically saying if you then think you're ill and try and fix it or worry about it and all that sort of thing, or make it wrong in any way, then you're attacking the god of sickness, giving it power.
Nice. And welcome, Judith. Good. Selma?
I would say just if you believe in him. I would just change attack for a belief.
Nice. So, yes, right and right. Thank you, Judith. Thank you, Selma. Essentially, maybe one extension of these thoughts is, even if you're like the whole concept of we're to fight this, this means that we're believing, we're making sickness real to us. Now, again, we're not here having spiritual blinders saying that we're not feeling the symptoms that we're feeling, or that there aren't certain test results or whatever it may be. What we're saying is, how are we solving this? How are we healing? If we're giving ultimate authority to the sickness, in other words, making sickness a god, then we're making sickness real to us. If we're saying, God, I know that I know that I brought this here, that this was brought to me, however I may think about it, for a particular reason, and I'm willing to see what it is because I trust in your healing. I trust in this healing and our healing. I trust that the solution to this is to embrace right-mindedness. Somehow I must have had wrong-mindedness. Something must have been wrong, whether consciously or unconsciously. And so I know that the solution to this is right-mindedness, meaning one-mindedness. Spirit, God is the solution, which then we make God as our God. Let's see, Teresa.
So an example that comes to mind is when Mother Teresa was asked to attend an anti-war protest. And her response was, when there is a march for peace, I will march. So just the flip side of the same coin, she was staying in that place of joy and got her God place, as opposed to, even though an anti-war protest we see as a positive thing, if we're going about it in a way that puts us in split mind or takes us out of joy, takes us out of our healthy place are, joy, peace, love, all those kind of feelings. As soon as you step out of them, no matter what your intention, what you may think was a good intention, it's a fine line. You got to watch. You can fall off the little thin line.
Amen. Yes, thank you, Teresa. Exactly, precisely. This is what do we want? This is just quintessential, law of attraction kind of material here of what focusing on the abundance of something rather than trying to fight against something.
So Debbie over on Facebook says, great example, Teresa. And earlier she was saying, so negative feelings like annoyance are part of God. She was asking, she thought anything negative was us being apart from God. But this is kind of it. If we say that annoyance is not God, then we're making annoyance a God in itself. Right. And so it's it's like we're playing with words here, and you can go down the rabbit hole a little bit in trying to think it out. But when we claim the fact that God is all inclusive, that means everything. And annoyance anyway is really pretty much just chemical reactions, right? It's an emotion, it's a thought, it's all connected, not really who we are at the core. It's
Amen.
fleeting. I should say it's fleeting. It's changeable.
Meaning it can be removed, meaning it's not real.
Yes.
And the solution to annoyance, as Karen has said, this is God too. Just because not to say that it's just that saying that is going to cure it, but sitting in this, it's okay that I'm annoyed. Or even better yet, or whatever, equally good is, and it's okay that thing happened. That was on plan, Okay, Kathy. See, Kathy hand raised.
I think what I keep hearing in my head and what I've understood or observed I'll use my mom as an example. As it's saying, God is not at war with the God of sickness you made, but you are. When you, if I was to go into fear or try to resist, say I got a diagnosis and I went into the fear and I resisted it and I'm going to fight it, I empower it. And, you automatically are attached to it. And the difference is almost, it's like the surrendering, just like what you were saying, being with it, because there is something that, even though we don't necessarily understand or can see or what have you, but it isn't the enemy that we look at, so as soon as you go into that fight, you've given it the power.
Yes.
And it's very real.
And it's making it real to us. So let's see, Tracy with the hand raised here. Tracy.
Hi. Can you hear me? All I keep thinking is that line from the Course, and is in my defenselessness, my safety lies. And that, it seems to be, that's what we're talking about. Not defending against the sickness, just leaning into it and then being willing to see it differently. Is that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. As soon as like you're saying, Tracy, as soon as we're willing to see it differently, assuming that we had seen it as something wrong first initially, then we're giving the willingness, we're giving the universe, God, all of this, the opportunity to show us how it is exactly right, because it's right here. And so only in this state can we heal, can we use it.
Yeah, and what I find is when I am aware that I'm in that place, and it's typically when I'm not feeling good, I ask for that. I'm willing to see this differently, even if I need to remove myself from the situation. And if I just get still for a minute, even an instant or longer, how I look at it changes. I mean, it really is amazing how it is available to us when we remember to ask. It's really beautiful. So thank you.
It is, Tracy. Thank you for sharing. Like you said, everything changes, even though nothing changes. It's the same exact thing, but because we're able to see it completely differently, and then our experience of it is completely different. Just the subtle, simple, profound power that we're, accessing here or uncovering.
I love it. Thank you.
Love
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Selma.
I guess when I use the word believe, is that what I meant was like for you, before you attack or fight something, you have to believe that exists. That's what I was trying to get to.
Exactly. And I think this is what essentially it means on the second part of it, Selma, and everybody, that if you attack him, if you attack sickness, you make sickness real to you. You're believing it. If you attack sickness, you believe in sickness. You can't attack something that you don't believe in. As you say, Selma. Let's see. Susan. Susan. I think Judith, we'll get back to you, Susan.
I'm here.
Judith,
I'm here.
Oh, okay. We got
I
you.
hit the wrong button.
Go ahead.
It'll be quick. So this teaching, tonight is acceptance, and if you have a sickness or a diagnosis and you judge it as wrong or something to fight, you're not accepting that, and you're also not accepting that everything is God, including the sickness. So it's an attack on God, and that makes the sickness a false idol or a god. Even though you may not be happy with whatever the diagnosis is, if you accept it as everything is God, if you attack it, then you're attacking God and turning away from God and giving power to something else. That's what I have to say. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to want to jump in here and just do the PS to that, which is, right, we don't want to attack the idea. We don't want to say, this shouldn't be happening, this is wrong. At the same time, we can go for a walk. We can choose good foods to eat. We can have positive thinking. We can go see a doctor. We can go see a naturopath. We can do anything that the will of God moves through us to do, right? Or nothing at all. And that is a part of accepting that this is here. This is in front of me. It's to take action is not necessarily pushing against. It can be, it depends on what your perception is of this diagnosis, but it doesn't have to be. You can receive a diagnosis. You can say, as we're saying today, this is God. This is also a part of God. And then just listen and allow the will to move through you as a body and take whatever action feels like the right action to take.
I think, thank you, Karen. It's one very fully powerful line from Conversations with God. The first book says, essentially, know that the moments of your greatest trial can become the greatest statements of who you are. And so in this light, if we're at the lowest of low, to have this understanding that this is actually for my own greatest glory. This is an opportunity for me to, and maybe we're not on that understanding, but if we can plant the seeds now, or at least be willing to see how it can be true, we're giving a little willingness, which is, of course, the miracle shows us is the most powerful thing that we can give. It's never our little willingness alone. It's our little willingness combined with the full power of God. So if we get a diagnosis, we don't we don't have to say, oh, I don't believe anything, you know. We also don't have to say, oh, okay, this person says that the date of expiration on this body is in whatever, and so that's true. No, it's, hold on, something is calling for me to change. A sick body, A Course in Miracles says a sick body doesn't make sense. A body cannot be sick, but a mind that thinks it's a body is sick indeed. So I know, a little secret here. If we're ever sick, any of us, all of us, and we find out about it or feel it, immediately, right away, we know the source. We know the cause of it. We know it intuitively, whether it's the thing that we keep doing that we want to stop, or the habit that we want to stop and we don't. We know exactly what it is right away. This is where symbolism can cloud our intuition, because we know it right away. We know, oh, I gotta take it easy from work. That's what this is telling me. I know right away, boom, so I'll take it easy from work. And what happens? I heal. Or we can say, oh, I have no idea what caused this. It can't be, you know, I'd wanted to do this and I haven't been doing it, but let me look online and see, maybe my genetics are predisposed to something. And then we convince ourselves through all this twisted thinking and symbolism that somehow that's how we've earned it. And it's way out of our control. We have to take some sort of thing to get better. But we know right away, whatever the sickness may be, whether it's the petty annoyance or the great major cancer, whatever, we know the source of it, meaning we know the source of healing. We know the solution, the way to heal. Let's see, Judith. I think, Judith, you wanted to say something.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to share an exercise that I learned from Michael Dawson, which was written Healing the Cause, about A Course in Miracles. He does this exercise where you sit with the pain or whatever in the body, be it an emotion or diagnosis or whatever, and you just be curious with it, accepting of it. You ask the Holy Spirit to come in and work with you, and you see it as a symbol or a shape and a color. You just be curious with it, and it's amazing how quick that changes from one shape to another and a symbol, and then you just see if you can let it go or what it has to say to you. And it's a beautiful, simple exercise, just going, yeah, putting it back over to the Holy Spirit, seeing it as that opportunity to grow and learn, and letting it go. Yeah.
Beautiful. Tell me if I understand this correctly, Judith. You're saying, or we're saying, that to essentially think of the sickness as a symbol that we can interact with?
Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
and like if you feel it somewhere in your body or your whole body, you might you start seeing it as colors, shapes, symbols, whatever, and you do that a few times, and it sort of shifts its colors and shapes and all that. It says, you know, when you're curious, you're not pushing it away, for starters. You're not, and then yeah, it's amazing what insights can come, and very often ability just to let it go, and you can see it for what it is, what it wants to, what opportunity is being presented to you.
Absolutely. I were to say that that is the exact opposite of attack. So, bravo. There's no resistance there, just a mingling with, which is awesome. Kathy, raised hand.
Do you see how I'm following the rules? I am trying to be good. I don't have my phone because I don't know how to raise my hand with that. So I'm really listening. No, it is. It's the same, following on what Judith was just saying. It's the welcoming of it. And again, of course, Dr. Ihali Akalash Yulen. It's a wake up, you know, really. And again, never to belittle what a person is going through when you get a diagnosis or something. but it is the body speaking, and it's to welcome the disease and to talk to it and thank it. And there is something there for you. There always is, whatever. You know, when we're out of that, when we're wobbling, no matter what it is, the crazy head chatter or stress or whatever's happening in life, it's a constant opportunity. And the way I've kind of interpreted it is, the bigger the problem, it's just one hasn't been listening. So it gets louder and louder and louder. But it's just a turn around and welcome it. So
Absolutely.
bless it.
Thank you, Kathy. And your sharings are making me consider what I'd say now my favorite tool of support healing. If somebody is dealing with symptoms or sickness, of course, as we've been discussing in A Course in Miracles, we don't empathize with sickness, because then we're making it real. But we also don't deny things that are. We can't. If we see something, we don't deny it. But see, the subtle, the nuanced approach is not to see anything as wrong, as whatever. And so if somebody is, it's always well, it's not always, but only the self-diagnosed sickness is truly sick. And so if somebody is self-diagnosed as sick, then we can ask, what would you want? What is the most glorious outcome to this situation? What do you want the results of this to be? Ideally, best case scenario, what do you want to result from this? Whatever their answer is, this is how I hold you. What do you want? You want to see? I hold you in this way. Because if we're imposing some sort of healing, like you need to be this, we're calling it wrong. We're saying you need to be changed. But if we can say, I see you as whole, but how will you see yourself as whole? What will it take for you to see yourself as whole? Okay, I see you like this right now. Boom. I see you as completely healed, and using this as a launch into your book and all these, whatever it may be. I hold this as you. Why? Because I see it unfolding right now. This is what's happening. Do you see it? Because I see it, and I'm here to amplify it with you. So let's continue here. Always comments are welcome. Our chat is pretty calm today, but we are popping with raised hands. We have a concert going. So let's paragraph 2. Reality can dawn only on an unclouded mind. It is always there to be accepted, but its acceptance depends on your willingness to have it. To know reality must involve the willingness to judge unreality for what it is. To overlook nothingness is merely to judge it correctly, and because of your ability to evaluate it truly, to let it go. Knowledge cannot dawn on a mind full of illusions, because truth and illusions are irreconcilable. Truth is whole and cannot be known by part of a mind. So if we backtrack a bit here, for those of us who have been with us for some time, we may be familiar with the concept of non-judgment, to be in a state of not judging, not as a completed final state, stagnant, but as an ongoing path, a process where we apply non-judgment actively. Even when we judge, if we judge something, we apply non-judgment. This is the solution. That's wrong. Oh, wait, hold on. I made a vow of non-judgment, so I rescind my judgment. Now, when we're brought to this sentence, so this is A Course in Miracles, non-judgment. When? Always, here now. For what? Everything. To know reality must involve the willingness to judge unreality for what it is. To overlook nothingness is merely to judge it correctly. So what is this saying? Essentially, judgments are superimposing these sets of symbols, as we had this 1 + 1 = triangle, when we make a judgment, we're superimposing this limiting dogma on top of the world, on top of the kingdom, and saying, ah, yes, that is one, and that's one, therefore that's two. This is a simplistic example. But when we make a judgment of, that's wrong, this is exactly what we're doing, that's exactly what we're doing. So when we're told to overlook nothingness, we're told to overlook judgment. Judgment is nothingness. It's a belief that we cannot believe. It doesn't make sense. It only applies in the realm of symbolism, this surface reality where we can believe. I have a belief that I cannot believe anything. It's wrong. If I have a belief that I can't believe, then I have a belief and I prove myself incorrect. But what does that actually mean? It's using symbols. The belief, what is a belief? If we're saying belief is a word and it's defined with these other words, we're putting belief in a box. But belief, what is belief ultimately? God, all of everything. So if we're saying, I believe that I can't believe, we could say God cannot God. It doesn't make sense. This cannot this. It doesn't make sense if we actually tease it out. Anytime we make a wrong judgment, this is inherently what we're doing. We're making something that it's just using symbolism and it doesn't exist. 1 + 1 = 2 is not actually superimposed on the world. We're just projecting it. We're just believing that it is. Essentially believing in that something cannot be true. So what is the solution is just to overlook it. Overlook the judgment, not overlook the symptoms of sickness, not overlook the written things on the board, but overlook the judgment that they're wrong. Even if a first grader or put on the test 1 + 1 = 1, is that wrong in the confines of the test curriculum? Maybe, but is it wrong that the first grader put that answer down? No. The concept of wrong only exists on the test, which is just some strange concept. So the judgment that I put a wrong answer means that I was wrong is the judgment. That person made a mistake and they are wrong. That's the judgment. That's superimposing a surface level rudimentary logic on a child of God. And so we let it go. Essentially, we could think of, walking in whatever our concept of heaven is, whether it's the pearly gates or whatever it may be, arcade room, enter in and we're in heaven, right? And to have the immediate and full understanding that all of the things that we thought were wrong never happened. Not in the sense that they didn't play out as we had observed them, but our judgments of them as wrong and all the implications that followed were simply misguided. All of the judgments and that thing was horrible and I tried to fix it my whole life. And then we go back and see how it was entirely right. And so the judgments that we had carried our whole life just vanish into the nothingness that they are. This is what we mean when we're saying to overlook nothingness is merely to judge it correctly. We're using judgment against itself. This is the only way that this is the mark of solution in the realm of tools. Judgment is a tool. To use it destructively, we use it on God. We use it on the world, right? To use it constructively, if we had been using it destructively, is to use it on itself. I use the tool of destruction upon itself, therefore rendering it void, meaningless. the final judgment, this is the final judgment, the final mistake, is to say the only mistake is the thought that there's a mistake. So if I make a mistake, oh, I made a mistake. Oh, wait, hold on. The real mistake was that I thought I made a mistake. Okay, everything is good now. The enemy, the final enemy, is the belief that there is an enemy. Because what is an enemy but somebody that's against me, that's separate from me, against God, outside of God? How can this be? Ah, that enemy, that's my enemy. But hold on. That person is not my enemy. The thought that that person was my enemy is my enemy. So all these tools can be rendered void. Essentially, they can be released from our shoulders if we just apply them to themselves. There's other things, I'm sure, that we can fiddle around through this time. Let's continue here. We're getting back to the concept of irreconcilable. And I'm sure we will come to it a bit more fully, but essentially, because this is brought in the second time, to think that God is everything and God is only some things is irreconcilable. God can't be all and also only some of things. God is all or nothing. And these two, and this is the only things, these two are also irreconcilable. To think that God is nothing and to think that God is everything. Truth and illusions are irreconcilable. Now, also one quick note before we continue. A Course in Miracles often talks of illusions. Now, the surface level understanding of this technical usage of illusions is to say, oh, everything I see is an illusion, it's not there, you know. On some level, yes, but more substantially, let's say, for instance, I'm biking past a fence with the slatches, what are they called? The thatchets that are slightly spaced apart. And when I drive past, it looks like something's behind there, but nothing really is. But I saw something. So what's the illusion? I saw something. I thought I saw something. That wasn't the illusion. I saw something. I thought I saw something. This is God. The belief that say that something is behind there is the illusion. So really, the only illusion is judgment. Judgment is the illusion. We think we see something in somebody, and we say, because I see the surface level thing based on the map of equations and logic I'm projecting, there must be something inside. I see it. I'm thinking it. I'm analyzing it, and it's true. But that's the illusion. It's not really there. So we continue here. The sonship cannot be perceived as partly sick, because to perceive it that way is not to perceive it at all. If the sonship is one, it is one in all respects. Oneness cannot be divided. If you perceive other gods, your mind is split, and you will not be able to limit the split, because it is the sign that you have removed part of your mind from God's will. This means it is out of control. To be out of control is to be out of reason, and then the mind does become unreasonable. By defining the mind wrongly, you perceive it as functioning wrongly. And this is, you know, when we say this is God, this is just another way of saying this. This is the key that takes us back and back and back and time again. Oneness cannot be divided. The sonship is one. It is one in all respects. Of course, it's saying if, but it just said it is one. So oneness cannot be divided. So God is not everything except my thoughts. Doesn't make sense. That's a split mind. God is not everything except for that policy in that government. God is everything. Oneness cannot be divided. And if you perceive other gods, meaning it that we perceive something other than God, something outside of God, our mind is split. We will not be able to limit the split. We're out of control. All these sorts of weird things go on because we've decided that thing is I am making it true. That thing is outside of God. Watch me. And God's saying, how can that happen? How can there be something outside of all of everything?
And we don't really ever remove part of ourself from the mind of God. But as you sometimes bring into the conversation, Kathy, we can feel like we're spinning out. We can feel out of control. And I think that's what this paragraph is pointing to, is the experience of feeling like we're separate from God.
And even, thank you, Karen, and even this is not wrong or inherently bad or whatever it may be, because this allows us to know experientially how it feels to be God, because there seems to be an alternative to it. And maybe we experienced it so that we know what it's like to be in God. So bless the curse kind of thing. Kathy.
Well, you're describing my experience today in the Apple Store. It's my second or third attempt because my phone is going to die. And I resist a lot of the things we need today. But it's the passwords, the whole rigmarole of going, what I have to go through, and I am not into the tech. I don't want to be into it, and I've resisted it, but I'm joining up. This is a fabulous example. But I think I had 3 gods there today that were so patient and trying to watch this gal. And when that split happened, when I went into anxiety again over ridiculous things for me, it just went. So once again, and then come back, full circle. But you lose that, it does spin, and a whole nightmare gets created, and then back on track. But that kindness kept showing up and trying to be understanding and go out of their way for the split one. But anyway, I really made crazy real.
And even this is okay. Might be time for Android. Apple used to be intuitive. This is the past. I can't even open my iPad anymore.
And it's not even so much that, it's because they're following the rules. They want it done separate of one another. You gotta go in and you gotta code and you gotta, instead of I'm here, can we do this together? I don't want to go to the machine. I want a person. And so that's the part that I don't want to accept. I don't want to join this part, but anyway.
I see you with a very well-functioning and intuitive, easy to use phone, Kathy. and actually telling everyone else how to use it too. Tracy.
What you're talking about resonates so much with me because it would trip me up all the time. The judgment where I think I'm angry at someone, or I think I know something. And then I know that's not a feeling that I want. And then I would try to push it away, which would, give it life. And this has been so helpful to me, and perhaps it might be helpful to someone else, is now when I catch myself immediately in that space, I think to myself, this is the thought I would not keep. And I release it, and it just brings me so much peace. There's no fighting in it. There's no pushing. There's just leaning back into God, acknowledging this is not a thought that I choose to keep.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, guys.
Add it to our toolbox here.
Yeah, that really is a beautiful approach, I think, because you're not saying, oh, this thought is wrong. You're not saying, oh, I shouldn't have had this thought. You're just saying, oh, this is the thought that I'm choosing to let go. That's very, it's very gentle.
Thank you. I hope that helps others as well, as much as it's helped me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I know on Zoom meetings, I have the option to put a little thumbs up in the corner of my screen. I don't see it on this one, so next time. I was doing it in spirit, Tracy. A little thumb. Karen G's got it. Which is, it's actually a very offensive gesture in many parts of the world. So. Peace sign, maybe next time. Zoom doesn't have peace sign.
Something else to learn. Thank you.
Yeah, party hat. Good. So let's continue here. Paragraph 4. God's laws will keep your mind at peace because peace is God's will, and God's laws are established to uphold it, peace. His are the laws of freedom, but yours are the laws of bondage. Since freedom and bondage are irreconcilable, their laws cannot be understood together. The laws of God work only for your good, and there are no other laws besides God's. Everything else is merely lawless and therefore chaotic, yet God's self has protected everything he created by his laws. Everything that is not under them does not exist. Laws of chaos is a meaningless term. Creation is perfectly lawful, and the chaotic is without meaning because it is without God. You have given your peace to the gods you made, but they are not there to take it from you, and you cannot give it to them. Here again, we're presented with this concept of things being irreconcilable. When we're in right-mindedness, ours are the laws of freedom. If we're in wrong-mindedness, then what we see are the laws of bondage. But as we're shown, bondage and freedom are irreconcilable. Laws of chaos is a meaningless term. So there are no laws of bondage. There's just a projection we can superimpose on the world to make it seem like there are laws of bondage. In truth, creation is perfectly lawful in the beautiful sense of freedom. You are not free to give up freedom, but only to deny it. You cannot do what God did not intend, because what God did not intend does not happen. Your gods do not bring chaos. You are endowing them with chaos and accepting it of them. All this has never been. Nothing but the laws of God has ever been, and nothing but God's will ever be. You were created through God's laws and by God's will, and the manner of your creation established you as a creator. What you have made is so unworthy of you. If what you have made is so unworthy of you that you could hardly want it, if you were willing to see it as it is. I know I put an if there. Let's see, how do we say this so that it's conditional? If what you have made is so unworthy of you that you could hardly want it. The condition is already here. Sorry, we'll read this again. What you have made is so unworthy of you that you could hardly want it if you were willing to see it as it is. You will see nothing at all, and your vision will automatically look beyond it to what is in you and all around you. Reality cannot break through the obstructions you interpose, but it will envelop you completely when you let them go. So, love this. You cannot do, when we say this is God, again, this concept that this is God is just interwoven all throughout this text. Sometimes more flatly, plainly, obviously, like this. You cannot do what God did not intend, because what God did not intend does not happen. If something is here, then God has allowed it to be. Intend is this concept which maybe can impose some sort of motives or something. So we can say if something is here, then God intended it to be. We can also say, if it is here, God has allowed it to be. If it is here, God has willed it to be. All these are dancing around the same truth, that if something is here, then God has placed it here. And if something is not here, then this is also by design. So there are so many things that are. There are so many things that can be. We could think of things that maybe aren't physical, and we could think things. There are all sorts of, there's the past and the future and things that have happened and will happen. There are also things that just can't happen. And we can't even conceive of them because they can't happen. So it's not that just like, oh, everything is just including all of everything. Well, all of everything that is. There are some things that are not by design, so that we can be here now having this experience. And so if I could think it, then it is. Then God has willed that I think this thought. So also, this is saying the same thing. So if you were willing to see it as it is, in other words, willing to see some illusion of judgment as it is, you will see nothing at all. And your vision will automatically look beyond it to what is in you and all around you. So essentially, if we're willing to look, to see judgment as it is, in other words, to see right through it, which is our natural eternal state, if we're in right-mindedness, in other words, our vision will automatically look beyond judgment. Our vision will look to what is in you, what is in us, and all around us. Our vision will look to what's in us and all around us, meaning it's not just the vision of the physical eyes, but our vision, this greater vision that we have, will look to what's in and all around us, meaning, you know, of course, there's the sentiment, the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's also all around you. It's everything. So our vision, when we're in right-mindedness, sees all of everything that is in us and all around us. No difference between the two, in fact. And of course, reality, truth, love, joy, God cannot break through, will not break through the obstructions you interpose, but it will envelop you completely when you let them go. When we have the door holding it so closed shut because the judgment that we made is right, and we let it go, the fresh air can come in of joy, peace, freedom, health. You know, in order to be, to be healthy, to share joy, we have to let it come. Not in the strictly passive sense, let it come to you. It's often taken to be just sit there and, but hold on, let as a command, let it come to you. Actively let it come to you. So in order for us to feel this truth and love and joy, actively being in the eternal state of letting it, actively letting it come. However we may take this to be, whatever we're called into doing, when we have a yearning to do, go get something to eat, this is letting it come. Whatever our yearning, our calling is, when we follow it, it's not a sacrifice. We're actively letting capital J, joy, come to us to envelop us completely. When you have experienced the protection of God, the making of idols becomes inconceivable. There are no strange images in the mind of God. And what is not in God's mind cannot be in yours, because you are of one mind, and that mind belongs to him. It is yours because it belongs to him, for to him ownership is sharing. And if it is so for God, it is so for you. God's definitions are God's laws, for by them he established the universe as what it is. No false God you attempt to interpose between yourself and your reality affect truth at all. Peace is yours because God created you, and God created nothing else. Isn't this a wonderful thought? Peace is yours because God created you, and nothing else. You are all that God created. Truly, this is not a conditional. This is not a sometimes. This is not a exclusive statement. Period. God created nothing but you. So what does this do? When we walk back in our opening comments about A Course in Miracles, we're not limiting ourselves to prior definitions of creation and you, but we're presented with the sentence, God created nothing but you. So how can we make it make sense to us? What do we have to do? We have to first understand what creation is, but even more fittingly, understand what we are, what I am, what we can all say, I am. If God created nothing but me, we can say, what am I? What must I be?
It goes back to the beginning when you were talking about the Lord, right? And anytime we give a name, you know, that idea of the tetragrammaton, anytime we give a name to something, it creates a limitation. And I was thinking then when you were talking about that, it's the same for when we give ourselves a name. You know, Noah, Karen, G, Selma, Teresa, Mary, I'm just reading across here. You know, I mean, yes, this is the name we go by. This is how we communicate with each other. But if we limit ourselves to, I am Karen G, and I am that which I perceive myself to be, and or I am that which I think my friends here in this discussion group perceive me to be, that's all a limitation. And so if we're saying God created you and only you, created nothing else, that's not like just you, Karen G, just your personality, that's the only thing I created, but it is a part of the whole, it is the one.
Amen. Absolutely. And this is essentially getting us to refine our understanding of self. If our understanding of ourself is such that this statement doesn't make sense, then we're called to change our understanding of ourself so that it does. This is not a sacrifice. It's a stepping into the fullness of who we actually are, of who I am, of who you are.
And this sentence is such a perfect example of what you said earlier, that A Course in Miracles is a tool. So we can take this sentence, we can use this sentence as a tool. It's like, oh, what does this mean? Oh, I guess my limited perception of myself maybe is not fully accurate.
And thank you, Karen, this it even reminds of, or takes to, you know, if let's say somebody is saying something, of course, like we're all in the willingness here. Like, I think we're all we get it, or at least we're willing to get it. What if somebody says something to us, and, you know, during the day, and it doesn't make sense? Talking about, oh, I don't know, being a miserable sinner, or whatever the thought may be. What we're called to do is not to deem it as wrong, as we continue to say, immediately discount it as wrong, as much as to see it and say, how is this exactly right? How can I see this as exactly right? Because this is the healing. If healing is due, it's only given in the state of healing, in the state of wholeness. If we think something is wrong and we say, this is wrong, and so I'm going to correct it, it's not healing. It's trying to spread split mind. But if we have the willingness to say, what if this is exactly right? What if, even further, everything that everybody says is simply the statement, this is God? What results is amen. For everything that is said, whatever somebody can say to us, around us, amen. Because we're all essentially saying this. What else can we be saying? This is God. Yes, this is God. This is wonderful. However many ways we could say it. This is God. Oh, look at this. This is God. Yes, this is God. And so when we're in this willingness of understanding that God created all of this, and if somebody is here and speaking with us, then it's not a coincidence. It's divine timing. It's a divine circumstance. And in order for us to experience it as such, we have to just have the willingness to see it as such. That God is saying something to us which, wow, I had never considered that this was true, but I have the willingness to see that it is true. And furthermore, amen. Because what do we want? What do we really want? We don't really care if we really get to the heart of it, the cornerstone of our system. We truly do not care about the symbols that are used. The words that are used, the order of words, the language, this means nothing because it's symbolism, it's a tool. What we care about is the process of healing. So somebody can be saying to us all these words of judgment and whatever we can deem as undesirable. But we sit and say, yeah, I hear this. That's absolutely, amen, amen. Not in a sense of, yeah, I'm limiting you, but in a sense of, I hear the passion that you're communicating, and I hear what it is that you're trying to say, and you're using these words that maybe are foreign to me, but I know what you're saying, and I see you as whole all the time. So it's not in the forms of symbols that we heal or change minds. It's in seeing through the forms and the symbols that we heal our own mind. There's only one.
Well, I think it's a new bumper sticker, which dates me. But anyway, this is and I'm in.
This is and I'm in.
And I'm in.
And all around. Let's continue here. Paragraph 7. The miracle is the act of a son, daughter of God, who has laid aside all false gods and calls on his brothers to do likewise. It is an act of faith because it is the recognition that his brother can do it. It is a call to the Holy Spirit in his mind, a call that is strengthened by his joining. Because the miracle worker has heard God's voice, he strengthens it in a sick brother by weakening his belief in sickness, which he does not share. The power of one mind can shine into another because all the lamps of God were lit by the same spark. It is everywhere and it is eternal. Just continue here. In many, only the spark remains, for the great rays are obscured. Yet God has kept the spark alive so that the rays can never be completely forgotten. If you but see the little spark, you will learn of the greater light, for the rays are there unseen. Perceiving the spark will heal, but knowing the light will create. Yet, in the returning, the little light must be acknowledged first, for the separation was a descent from magnitude to littleness. But the spark is still as pure as the great light, because it is the remaining call of creation. Put all your faith in it, and God, God's self, will answer you. Yay. So one thing I'd like to point out, it's a nice section overall. The miracle worker, another takeaway for us. The miracle worker, which is who all of us has heard God's voice and strengthens it in a sick brother, sick thought, sick item, whatever it may be, strengthens God's voice by weakening our brother's belief in sickness, which we do not share. If we don't share a belief, we're not strengthening it, which means in some sense we're weakening it. If somebody sees themselves as limited and we don't, we're not amplifying the littleness, we're amplifying the magnitude. And so, again, this has nothing to do with physical symptoms or whatever it may be, as much as seeing somebody as whole. Sickness is not right-mindedness, wrong-mindedness, split mind. So healing is wholeness. Got Teresa with the hand raised.
And I just love the next part. That just blew me away when I read, the power of one mind can shine into another because all the lamps of God were lit by the same spark. It is everywhere and it is eternal. And I went to, wow, we've talked about the healer does not heal. He lets the healing happen. And I read that and that's what raced into my mind. And I thought this is a prime example of that, of it just going through us into others, holding the space for them in whatever, in God consciousness.
And isn't it beautiful, Teresa, how complementary these thoughts are? The therapist doesn't heal, but simply lets healing be. This gives a very passive role. And this is essentially our mind shining healing light into another, which is a very active role. And they're, like you said, they're saying the same exact thing. So which one of these is helping us in this situation?
And this has the same, I want to use the word activity, the same positive energy. No, it's more than that. It's more profound than that. Intimacy that I think it was Tracy said earlier, this is not a thought I would want to keep. That has a very profound activity to it as well, as I find this piece does. There's something about it that just sort of, crossing the bridge, Karen, it shoots you right across that little bridge, right? The little willingness, and you just fire right into the kingdom of heaven, over the bridge, over the moat, transcend it all.
Beautiful. So, yeah, thank you all. Any closing, any thoughts, any comments? Karen G? I know Teresa leaves us with a quote. I'm sure somebody has some sort of thought.
I just feel like, the word redundant. It's like A Course in Miracles is telling us the same thing over and over again, but in all these beautiful chapters and all these beautiful sections and sentences. And, each of us, we react to different ones. Like you, Teresa, I just loved watching you react as you read that sentence, the power of that for you. And we all have those sentences and sections that we really resonate with and really touch us deeply. And I don't know, I guess I'm just saying that A Course in Miracles is just such a wonderful book and a wonderful tool for us to use. And I love that we get together every Sunday afternoon or evening, wherever you are, to talk it over. And thank you, everybody, for joining us, and on Facebook as well.
Oh, shh. Not now, I'm gonna read. Ladies barking at the kids are playing next door. So, you know what's inspired me now? So this is from chapter 11, section 2. Think like God ever so slightly, and a little spark becomes a blazing light that fills your mind so that God becomes your only guest. Have a wonderful week. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Love you all.
Thank you, guys.
Love you too.
Great session.